Hello. So I spent the last 2 days, I don't know, studying all sorts of stuff about MBTI typing. Um, Although I had heard about it before, obviously, it was practically just relearning it, but mostly it was learning it for the first time, as only the first maybe video was a recap, and the rest of it was truly just learning something new. And just like my minimalism video, but this time with more um, thought through parts. Not obviously not the vocabulary I choose, but I just wanted to talk about something that I've encountered whilst researching this stuff. So I should note, if you didn't watch the video for what my MBTI type was, I took the one I took video-wise and I recorded and uploaded was the 16personalities.com version. I took two other versions, and I took all of them many times. I did that so that I could get a pie chart, which I will pull up later, as to whenever I slightly adjust the way that I think about the question, then what type do I get? And that'll come in later. And I think either I'm an exception or a lot of it is not very accurate. Okay. Now, I'm going to start off with a note. Given that people who search something typically are searching it because they like it, most likely you clicked on this video thinking, yes, I want to learn about, MBTI, INTP types, for example. And likely you believe in it. It kind of like, people who believe in zodiac stuff are the people who are likely to look it up. Myself, I don't believe in that, so I don't look it up. And, it's kind of like one of those things, which is the reason I think that it's hard for someone to make something negative on YouTube, because if you're going to search something, you're clearly enjoying the thing, if that makes any sense. I rarely would go onto YouTube and search why I dislike something. If I wanted to figure that out myself, most likely I would just try to break it down and see where it could be wrong, which is part of the INTP type, to my understanding. So I watched several videos. I watch basically every YouTube video at 2 times speed, because otherwise life sucks. Most people speak very slowly. They speak at a fine pace, but if I am not actually having a conversation with them, doubling the speed is just ideal, because I can pick up on every single word and I can remember what they're saying. And then what happens is whatever I hear goes into me and then is distilled and broken down into its fundamental parts, and then those fundamental parts are then taken out, and then they become something that I can think on and then work forward from. So, in my MBTI types, so I should say basically 50-50, I fall between INTP and INTJ. On the 16 personalities one, I mostly get INTP, and on the human, I don't remember the name of the other one, I get mostly INTJ. The difference between the two is quite big, but not like enormous. If you want to figure out really what like experts in the field say about all this stuff, it's much better to look at what they're talking about, because, well, to be honest, most of what I was watching, and the reason why I think something's off, is that it went over my head in the bad way. Something going over my head can happen. If someone's talking about like astrophysics and how to do the mathematical, I don't know. Already my brain's shut off in me saying that, because my brain doesn't like that. But there are certain topics in which, if I'm listening to them, my brain can process the information, and then it doesn't process things that don't logically make sense. Especially things which don't logically make sense within my own personal experience. Personal experience as in like my internal experience, not my experience of others. Okay. because I don't know how others think, but I know how I think, if that makes any sense. And I think, in fact, the main reason I dislike people is because most of them try to act like they know how I think when I can clearly tell them that they don't. So, looking at INTP, which I think is the more accurate one as a general statement, I found a few videos of this guy, C.S. Joseph. And C.S. Joseph, the first 2-3 videos I watched were phenomenal. But then I watched more and it felt odd, and I will go over that in a bit. But I watched his video talking about the 4 types of the mind, and I have a little cheat sheet right here. I'm using my door thing, my door whiteboard to help. So as an INTP, my ego, which is the I, has the hero of TI, which is intuitive thinking, the parent of NI, which is did I say intuitive thinking? Sorry, it's not intuitive. It's introverted thinking. God, I'm an idiot. And then NE is my parent, and my parent of NE is extroverted intuition. Then my child is SI, which is introverted sensing, and then my inferior function is FE, which is extroverted feeling. So, to really break down what he said, besides, I'm going to skip the fact that in other videos he completely said the dead opposite, and that's beside the point. The main video I saw, which was talking about INTPs, and the video that I think was the most accurate was the difference between INTP and INTJ, and that's the reason I think I'm more of an INTP in his video. And what it was is, my main function is TI. Just if I'm existing, I'm thinking about things and how they relate to other things, and going on and going on and going on. The part of me which likes to help others, the part of me that is most disliking of other people, I would honestly say, is NE. Basically, whenever people cannot see the consequences of their actions within anything, and so I see that everyone is doing nonsensical things, making terrible choices, and that's the parent function NE. My child function SI just means I get comfortable in what's familiar, is kind of what he said, which I think every single human being on Earth gets comfortable in what's familiar. And then my FE inferior function is typically the way he described it was, no, I do really care. I really, really care. I promise. Which is not true at all, at least for me. And I should note, it's entirely possible that I'm just shutting myself off from feelings and not realizing that that actually is the case. But in my experience, the FE inferior does not work the way that he described it as working, which is that, I do actually care. However, I think it's more of the backbone of how someone can make me angry, which is if I show things that are clear in my mind that I care about someone, and then that person rejects those things as being examples of my caring for them. Whew, that was hard to read. It's also very hard, I say read because in my head I'm reading it. It's very hard for me to think in a line, because when I'm thinking in a line, I remember that there are things outside of that line, and then it just keeps going, and then I start thinking about sentences ahead of where I'm speaking, and it gets really difficult, so I apologize, especially because I'm completely winging this. I made the chart and I did all that, but I'm winging my first verbalized thoughts. I haven't verbalized this yet, and verbalizing is the hardest part of any process for me to do. Okay, so we got that done. So then we go to the unconscious, which my unconscious, according to him, is an ENTJ. Okay, so ENTJ has the nemesis of TE. The way he describes it is that someone like me thinks that everyone around them is really stupid. That is dead on. I have met maybe 5 people out of probably thousands of people, maybe 3,000 people I've met. I've met about 3 people who I would consider equal or greater to in intelligence to me, I think is how I'd phrase that. I might have added an extra 2 there. For the most part, I view that everyone else is really dumb, but I don't think that everyone's dumb because they think improperly. I think that everyone's dumb because I see every action that everyone makes, and then I could have predicted exactly what happened with little effort, and I just get confused as to why they made a choice at which this outcome would have occurred, because typically I could have found a better choice that they could have made, and so I assume everyone's retarded because of the fact that they haven't proven otherwise. That also ties in to my NI critic, right? NI critic? I think? No. Yeah, NI critic. So this is also something that I think was somewhat true. Someone like me, it's hard for us to make a decision because we see everyone else making really dumb decisions. And in my case, I fear that other people might be making, I fear that I might make bad decisions because in my experience, making decisions equals being dumb or being like most people. And I again agree with that. Now, here's where I think one of the biggest issues was for me when I was watching this video. He said that the SE is the trickster. And the way he described it in 2 different ways in 2 different videos, but I'm going to go over the main one right now, because the other one, basically there's one video I saw that he contradicted almost everything he said earlier. So the SE trickster is that I'm not aware of the outside sensories, but I mean, that's just, not true. If I'm in a situation, I'm entirely aware of everything that's going on in the situation, but I don't have to look at everything to visualize it. I'm completely aware of where everything is. In fact, I'd say that most of the time, I am more aware of what's going on in the entire ecosystem of the environment than most people are. Because I'm listening. Say, okay, let's give an example, okay? Say I'm at some fancy dinner, so something I'm not going to be at. I can look off in the distance, and if I've seen what everyone was doing, I can visualize almost perfectly what will be happening in 10 minutes, with some exception. Obviously, I can't tell if someone new is going to come in, who exactly is going to leave. I can typically figure that out, but some people are weird and like to eat their food and then sit and talk to other people. I don't know why you'd go to eat food with another human being and then communicate with them, but some people do that. But almost all of the time, I have an internal view of what's happening on the outside that is 100% accurate. So, I mean, I could be completely misinterpreting what he said. And if somehow this guy sees my video, I would love to just sit down over, not a Skype call because Skype's retarded, but some kind of call and figure out why it's going over my head so much. But that was one of the big ones, is I'm completely aware of the environment, but I find that being aware of the environment by literally observing it constantly over and over again would be too tiring. And it's way easier to see what's going on in the environment and then extrapolate in my head the most likely environment at a certain point in time, because that has literally never failed me since probably I hit puberty. Like, I am always aware of what is going on in the environment. Now, FI Demon, again, it was kind of hard to figure out what he was trying to say, but for the most part, it felt like what he was saying is, I don't like it when someone wants to know how I feel, and I'd agree with that, because how I feel is not an actual question, because I don't feel, I think. If someone asks me, what do you think, what do you believe, what do you feel, those all mean the same thing in my head, but I can use them to mean different things, to mean, what most people mean them to mean. So whenever someone asks what I feel, I just say, oh, well, I think this, because I don't feel. And I think that's kind of accurate, but I don't care that someone asks how I feel unless they're trying to, extract it. Like, for example, therapists seem like BS to me, because a therapist, as to what I've seen, is mostly about trying to extract how you feel. And that's just bad. I also don't see the need for a therapist, because anything I feel, I can think away. If I feel sad about something, I can think about why I'm sad, and then I can think about solutions to preventing the sadness again, and to leaving from being sadness. And I can think of a way of preventing the current sadness from continuing. There we go. But like that's it. Like I don't see like an FI demon of I want to like beat people's skulls in whenever they show that whenever they act like I don't care. Granted, though, I should note again that when I do care about things, if people try to argue that I don't care, then I'm upset. But it has nothing to do with a feeling in my. I mean, maybe it does. Okay, maybe it does. But in my brain, the way that I view the situation isn't that they're trying to extract feeling. It's that they're trying to attack my TI with their TI, and their TI is wrong because their TI is based on feeling, if that makes sense. And I feel like I need to make lots of caveats because I never feel like I know enough because I wish I could just know everything. If I could live for all of eternity and just absorb all knowledge, well, that's just a big nut. Like that's just what I want in life. So if someone can create immortality for me, please do it. I am fine with living alone for all of eternity. Like that's people. I'll talk about that in another video. That's a big thing I should talk about. Oh man, I hate stopping tangents. It makes me shake. But anyway, here's where all of it was wrong, in my opinion. Or maybe I'm just weird. Someone emailed me or texted me. I'm not sure. I am very much weird. And in fact, I, for the longest time, just thought I was probably just autistic, although I think that autism is not really, like, I think autism is viewed like a disease, almost not like a contagious disease, but I think it's viewed differently than what, in my opinion, it is, because I've met a few autistic people, and in my opinion, all they are is more like me. We have the same logical process typically, but they have a better memory, is all I find. It's typically like, to them, their existence in the present is an amalgamation of all past existences, whereas for me, I find that my existence in the present is just devoid of anything. I could be born right now with all the knowledge I have, and I would not view that anything has changed, if that makes any sense. But I think that the people I have met, at least, that have autism, seem to more so think that like they are this, and all these little lines that came, well, actually I should do it like this. They are this, and all these little lines that came off of this, that go to the past, are what led to this thing's creation. Whereas I just don't see it like that. I see it that like I have had those experiences, but if I just downloaded them, they would be equally as real as actually having experienced them. I don't know. That's just, that is the first time I've ever verbalized that. So some other time I'm going to completely restate what I just said in a completely different way, and I'm sure. And I am being clear on that because when I verbalize things for the first time, I never keep what I said originally, but I keep parts of it. I like to use speaking as a soundboard, but it doesn't work unless I am being watched, and having myself be recorded works. So typically, I can talk to someone and I can use them as a soundboard. In fact, my mother hates me because anytime I talk to her, that's what I'm doing. I'm using her as a soundboard. But anyway, blah, blah, blah. Let's go on to what's important. So this is where I think it's wrong, is the subconscious and the superego. The reason I think it's wrong is not that they don't exist. Obviously, I think they do exist, and I think they're equally as important, and I think that people undervalue the superego as an important thing. What my issue is I think that ESFI, I think it would be, maybe, yeah, ESF, no, why am I thinking I? ESFP? I don't know what it'd be. My superego should be ESF something. I don't actually have those written down, sadly. I have the what's it called, the cognitive functions written down. I think it'd be ESFP. But it also could be J. No, it's probably J, because, yeah, I think ESFJ. I don't know. So ESFJ is like where I get, my satisfaction, where I become happy. And the way he says is FE, making people happy, maybe. SI is my duty. NI is my metaphysics. TI is my logic. And I mean, maybe this is what went over my head. Maybe I've never unlocked my subconscious. Maybe I've never experienced it. But in my opinion, that's just it. Both the superego and the subconscious are both just wrong. And I think the quickest way to fix it is to just change what they are. Because the way that he describes subconscious, at least for me, the most realistic version of subconscious in my mind would be the INTJ, which might also, like I said, it might be that I'm just weird, but because basically about 50% of the time I get one of those two. I get a few other ones, but those are the two main ones I get. So maybe I'm just an exception. Maybe most people, the subconscious would be in that pattern, but in my case, literally like the superego and the subconscious, those are the two parts that when he was talking about, like they just weren't right in my head. I was like, no, I don't get happy from fulfilling the subconscious. The subconscious of ESFJ. If anything, I get happy by fulfilling the subconscious of INTJ. And it's not even that I fulfill the subconscious, but more so that I create in my mind the conversation with an INTJ that would enforce better change within myself. I think maybe for other people it's different, but because of the fact that my type likes to visualize and conceptualize conversations in their head, I've lived probably 1,000 lifetimes in my head. Maybe that's the exception. Maybe we just create our subconscious within our mind because our mind is powerful. I don't really understand. But I don't know. It's one of those things where I disagree with every single bit of it, so it's hard for me to really explain why I disagree with it, because in my mind, all of it's wrong. The best way to fix it, like I said, would be INTJ as the subconscious, and then my superego, the thing that wants to take over, the parasite function, the part of me that exists, but I had to push away because it wants to eat me. Not even remotely. What would it be? ISFP, I think? ISFP? Yeah, so that'd be FI for morality, SE for physics, NI for willpower, TE rationale. Literally not even remotely. No. I know exactly the part of me that wants to take over, the parasite within me that wants to be the brain, okay? Not even an issue. I know exactly what it is. I'm not sure what the type would be exactly, though. The type that exists within me, I think, as the superego, I think it surpasses the 16 types. And I think that everyone's superego is probably an amalgamation of their nature and nurture. So, say my nature is INTP. Okay, say exactly, I am exactly an INTP, all that's correct. Then I think that the superego is an exemplar of what the internal and external experiences become. All right. That was way out there, and I apologize for that. And I'm not high, I promise. This is what happens when I verbalize things for the first time, which is nothing happens. I'm also going to force myself, because mostly what I do is I verbalize. I've made a video. I made at least probably 3 videos every day since I started YouTube, but I don't like any of them. So I'm forcing myself to just upload this one in full. Because then I find that what I've been doing is I'll talk about something and then just be done. I'm like, oh, well, I talked about it. Happy, fun times. Good. So I'm forcing myself to upload this so that I feel responsible for making sure that I get everything right. But, okay, with that long tangent and all the other long tangents, my superego is still INTP. Without a doubt. It's INTP, but it has a caveat, okay? My superego does not work in the same way that the cognitive functions are described in every video, in every article I've read. Well, I guess not article. I've read like essays more so. Well, I don't know. Is 50 pages considered an essay? Is that more like a paper? I don't know. Well, 87 and 134, I think. But the way that I see my superego, because of the fact that I'm very conscious of my superego, because I like to write. And when I write, I literally just write about my superego trying to take over my not superego, which I learned about by listening to what he described each of the types being, the 4 parts of the brain. My superego is an INTP, but with a secondary primary function. It has 2 heroes. the conflict, well, or maybe it doesn't have two heroes. Maybe the conflict, maybe the fact that I see the superego as in conflict is the reason I see that it itself is a conflict. But my superego is something which is absorbing sensory information, actual sensory information. It is seeing everything that's going on, and it's not trying to just see it and then visualize it in its head and then understand by guessing, but actually visualizing constantly. Like, think of like something scanning a page, just constantly doing that over and over again for everything that's going on. Okay, so I scan everything that goes on, I visualize angles. I can do this. I can tap into maybe the superego. I don't know. Whenever I'm playing a sport, for example, like basketball is the best example, or pool, where I literally visualize the optimal angle. What was it? That show, Sherlock, a BBC show, I think. Yeah, I think it's BBC. Had Benedict Cumberbatch. Like that, it's not quite like that, but there's like, little blops and stuff here and there. I don't see actually a blop there, okay? But because of the fact that I can't fully become superego in my mind, I stay in the INTP, so I still exist within a fake reality of realities. I visualize that there are these little blops and bloops and everywhere, but I don't actually I don't physically see it. Like, it's not like a hallucination, Like, I don't literally see like the Poetic Eddas. I don't literally see the book The Poetic Eddas right there in that case. What it is I imagine that the Poetic Eddas could be there, and then it goes on like that. And so whenever I'm playing a sport, I can visualize the exact angle at which to hit, and then it's more just, can I physically do it? Which half the time, yes, half the time, no. Basketball's the easiest in my mind, only because of the fact that gravity is on my side. It's almost entirely just aim based. If I can aim that way right, it's just a force, whereas pool is a little bit more. But that's the first part, sensory information that I can then find the optimal solution to find a goal, okay? And then I don't have a parent function in my superego. I think, if anything, my superego is a parent function by which I judge, sorry. That's actually incorrect. I visualize that in my head, and that's not true. I find that my superego is in and of itself the epitome of what my parent function is afraid of happening to me. That's the first really true thing I've said so far. That was the one bit of this video that was useful. So yes, my superego is the thing that my NE parent function is afraid of existing in the world. So the way I'm going to talk really quickly about a book I'm writing. Well, I'm writing part 2 of 3. I finished part 1, although I'm going to edit it down a lot because it's not good. And I'm about halfway done with part 2. Added together, they're like 700 pages right now, but whenever I'm done editing, it'll probably be more like 200 for the first 2 each, and then maybe 300 for the last one. I'm not sure. So the whole story is the main character. He's the prince. It's a fantasy, by the way. There's magic and stuff. The main character is the prince of a tyrant, basically. Although people don't, the people, as in like the people, they view him as a tyrant because he is. But given the guy grows up in an environment in which everyone he knows is bent over for the king because the king is good for them. He didn't realize that at first. He believes he's a good guy. And like everyone views their father as a good guy or whatever, father or whatever. The father figures. Everyone views the people in their life which can provide wisdom beyond the years of the person existing. That they view them good. I don't know. That was not a sentence. I forgot what I was saying, and I had it in the sentence. And blah blah blah. I'm gonna skip a lot, but basically, I made his life my experience. So he started out in school very good at everything. He never really had to worry about he never had to worry about failing, because failing was something that could only happen so long as he didn't do it. But if he did it at all, he was going to be fine. But then slowly later on, he found that the world does not work that way, and people want more than just satisfactory work. sadly, and they want more emotional work, and they want bullshit, and they don't like the truth. That's how people live. But basically what happens is he, as himself, a bit of a psychopath, because, I mean, I find myself to be a bit of a psychopath just without the actual homicidal tendencies. What happens is, oh man, I'm not going to spoil it, so I'm gonna spoil it in the sense that if you're watching this, you're going to know what happens in the book, but you're not going to know how it happens in the book. Basically, a lot of people start to think that he is weird and evil. They start to think that he's emotionless, that he is plotting to kill people. There's random things. There's lots of little rumors about that. What happens is basically he visualizes in his head what the world will look like in like a decade or so. And all he sees is that people are going to continue to view him as an evil person. And he just feels like he's being punished and punished and punished and punished for something that he doesn't care to commit, or doesn't care enough to want to do, nor does he even think about doing it in the first place. And this is what happens, is specifically people think he's trying to kill the king, and there's a reason for that. A lot of, okay, here's a spoiler. The king wants him to basically enlist in the force which is trying to dethrone the king. But as like a spy, but he's being really good. He's being too good of a spy, and he's saying arguments that are actually logical arguments as to why people shouldn't like the king, and that's why people start to really dislike him. That's one of the big ones, especially people he knows, because everyone in the kingship, they all know the kingship, like the royals all know that he's working undercover basically. But anyway. So people think he's going to actually kill the king because these arguments are not arguments someone who loves his father would make about his father, basically. So what happens is he feels punished, and then at the end of the book, the first book, he breaks, and he's like, you know what, fuck it. If everyone's going to see that I am this guy who wants to kill the king, you know what? I'm just going to do it, because the king is a pretty shitty person. I've made all these logical arguments. I realize in my head now that he actually is a shitty person. He doesn't feed his people, and blah, 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 blah. Kills the king in a fit of rage. He's actually talking to the king, and they have an argument because the king is like, well, hey, why are you saying these things about me? Obviously, you know these aren't true. And he's like, wait, do I know these aren't true? I'm not sure if I know these aren't true. And then processes it. Basically, I mean, this is what I do in any conversation. Kills him, okay? Goes on trial. Big trial scene that's like almost like half the book is just a trial scene. Trial scene. It's multiple trial scenes. Given that he's a royal, they don't kill him because it sets a bad example. Even though he killed the king, basically they don't do that. They just kind of, what would it be? They banished him, but also shunned him. Sort of. You read the book and it'll make more sense, because I can't describe things without context, and all of my book requires context. So, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to almost entirely skip book 2, as book 2 is me in a relationship, and it doesn't matter for most of the story, but it matters in the sense of better understanding me. Basically, it's the same thing, but what happens if he's the king and his people believe that he is uncaring and unloving of those people? And that's the thought I have in the second book. Second book, he's executed, but magical stuff. He can't die. Well, I mean, he can die, but can't really die. And he fucks up the royal armies, basically full of his kin. And then finally in the third book, he was decapitated, but he wasn't killed. He came back to life a certain amount of years later. It's 312 years exactly, and there's a reason I picked 312 years. And he comes back to the world. And then all the last book is the way that I view my superego and what wants to take over. This is what's important. I had to give you all that to give context to explain what I'm about to explain. And I am sorry that this video is going to be as long as it is. I am very sorry it's going to be that long. But the one person who wants to watch this video, Trevor, if you're watching this video, thank you. If you actually watch this video, first off, thanks. I don't know why I couldn't watch this video. But to stop talking about that, on point. The last book is what the superego in myself I view as the part of me that wants to take over, because it's not actually a part of me that it's a part of me in the sense that I don't think that something that is not a part of me could want to take over. Okay, but blah blah blah. In his case, it is actually him, and what this is it's something like the superego that the what would it be it'd be ISFP, I think. It's something like that, where what it is he draws his morality from the FI. He draws his morality like that, but more so what it is that people have proven to his TI that, well, sorry, I shouldn't use those terms. People have proven to his intelligence that they are simply not capable of being loved. And although he likes people and he wants to please people, he has learned that truly speaking, those people are not worthy of it. Because not a single person he has ever met, besides one who is killed, fuck it. His wife gets killed. He loves her, a great relationship, but the people of his place rise up, kill the wife, kill his son, and that's where he breaks. And that's actually why he's immortal. But that's lore stuff. That doesn't matter for this. And what happens is he views that every single other person is clearly too stupid to be moral and too stupid to understand what is good for them. And so he decides, you know what? I've been a prince. I've been a criminal. I've been a king. Why don't I just be the death? Why don't I just become the thing that everyone hates, so that I can exist in a way of pleasing everyone and not necessarily not pleasing myself? Because I view that the same way. Being like this, man, I don't know. I like ranting, but it hurts me to rant because everything I say I second guess, but then I whatever. So the part of me that wants to take over is a part that just views that no one is moral. Not a single human being on earth is moral. And it views it as such because in its experience in its outer experience, not a single living human being has ever proven themselves to be worthy, except for two, and well, I guess one, because kids can't really prove themselves to be worthy to a parent because whatever. That's another video. Only one person has really ever truly proven themselves to be worthy, and then the other people killed them. So the way he sees it is, that was the last person. Maybe there are others, but screw it. Clearly speaking, most people are immoral bastards. So he takes the fact that he has this massive intellect, he can logically reduce all things, and the fact that he is very powerful magically, given his past experiences, to just become the thing that everyone hates. And I write the last book as a romance because there are a few reasons, but the main reason is because of the fact that I think it's best seen as a romance, because I view the superego, the parasite within. I don't like using the word superego because it doesn't feel like it, but I like to write it as a romance because the superego within myself views itself as the counter to a relationship version of itself. Yeah. To break that down a bit, basically, the best way of describing how it works is by describing it in the sense of a relationship, because a relationship shows its darkest sides, because it is completely uncaring. It turned its apathy on. Would it be? Yeah, apathy on. It's turned its apathy on. It doesn't care about anything, but it understands human reactions so well that it can feign the fact that it does care. And in all actuality, I think, if anything, that parasite function within myself, if this is the way I view it, but I think honestly it slightly does take over, but it can be used in a better way. Did someone text me again? That is crazy. No one texts me twice in a day, or once in a day. Anyway, I view it that my parasite function of that has taken over whenever I am bored. And what happens is the best way of getting around it is by, say, making YouTube videos, ranting. Ranting is the best way for me to basically satisfy the parasite function, because it feels like, oh yes, I'm done. I've done something. And then what normally is me, which is just like, oh man, I exist, whatever. That part of me just comes in once it's tired, because it got its fun. And I just said all that, and honestly, it feels almost cathartic. Because, like I said, I've never verbalized it. And the videos I've watched and stuff I've read has really helped me understand myself in the sense of, I've thought of all these things. These aren't new concepts, but it helped me be able to actually verbalize them. Because in my head, all concepts are not normal. They're like geometric shapes that are like linking and like colors and sparkles and weird explosions and stuff. And I can see that, and then I can visualize. I visualize that, and then I can somehow break it into verbal thought. But it doesn't. It comes out about as well as that. In my head, it makes so much sense. But as soon as I verbalize it, it doesn't come out the way that I want it to. And no matter how much I sit down and write or anything, I can't possibly get what's in my head directly out of my head. The only way of really doing it is to give so much context that something means something, which is the entire purpose of the three book series. Literally, all I'm trying to do in the 3-book series is explain one single concept in my head. But the only way of explaining it is to give so much context that by the end of it, you have literally read a trilogy, and that's just so you can understand one thing, which is that I care. So, I don't know. If somehow you've made it through this entire video, first off, I applaud you. And second off, if somehow, what's his name? C.S. Joseph, I think. If somehow you can get this video to him, so he can review it in his own mind. I don't care if he makes a video. He doesn't have to give me publicity or anything. I can say publicity, I swear. Because, I mean, I like the way he thinks, but it seems like something is off with everything he said. And, I don't know. It's really difficult to verbalize, and I think the best way of verbalizing it is to explain what I'm thinking to the person of which I've experienced their thought, so that I can challenge their thought and see what we come to as a conclusion. Because I think that he's onto something, but I think that his onto something isn't quite right. Because when I was just describing the superego, I was describing the superego by looking at what he said it should be, but in reality, that isn't really how it feels in my soul. It like the superego doesn't feel like it's an FI dominant function at all. What it is it judges everyone else and everyone else's existence through FI, but it doesn't have its own FI. So what it does is it views it judges every single person's every other person's outward expression of self through its logical deduction of what is, and then it clings to the hope that there is some morality that exists, because I don't really think there is, and then it tries to assume, well, yes, there must be some kind of morality that exists, but clearly those people don't have that morality. Not because I can feel that they don't, but because if it did exist, I can logically prove that it does not in those people. Which is why I view my superego as just an evil version of the INTP. Not that it is the ISFP. But hey man, that's just my opinion. I don't know how long this video is, but it's long enough, so I'm just going to end it real quick right now. If you watch this video, holy crap, dude, thanks. Share this video too, because, I mean, I'm kind of sad that, you know, I get like 2 views per video, and then like 7 on the ones that I, you know, tell people to watch. But it's not the end of the world. Like I said, I don't really care that everyone watches my videos, but it's kind of sad, because then it feels like I'm producing content, but that I'm producing it so that it's public, but then it's not really public because I know the 2 people who watched it. You know what I mean? Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope this was at all insightful, and I hope that you want to read the book. And if either is true, please, and I'm not saying this as I'm like, oh, you should leave a comment because it's good for, YouTube. Literally, I would love if you would put some dialogue down in the comments that I can interpret and put into the function, which is this, and then see what my answer to that would be, because I want to be challenged to think about it more. You know what I mean? And anyway, thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your day.